Kevin, are you a family style orderer or an individual orderer?
I like a composed plate, Tom, and for a couple of reasons. I mean, one is I'm a pig. And the problem with family style is you got to pace yourself, and I eat faster and more than most people. And then there's that awkward moment where you want more, but you don't know if you should dig in for more. And you certainly can't go for thirds, and you start asking around the table. But if you do that too many times, and it's just family style's got to be managed. Give me a composed plate. The only disclaimer would be, I think, you go to a big Cantonese restaurant, or maybe a big Italian red sauce restaurant, maybe you want family style, but I want my own damn plate so I can eat my own food.
I'm with you. That's the right answer. I also think that in the era of allergies and diet restrictions, ordering for the table becomes a little problematic, a little more complicated. And so I feel like doing an individual order and having a composed dish and getting what you want, I think is the right move. This is Pack Your Knives. I'm Tom Haberstroh.
I'm Kevin Arnovitz.
And we are back. How about this? Kevin, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
You've been watching, in which I haven't watched Top Chef without covering it in something 8 years or so. Kevin, how are you and how has it been?
Oh, it's been good. I was a little late. I waited about 4 weeks. I got real busy right when it opened. Or hit the air. And so I was a little behind, but then I have this kind of wonderful rainy afternoon of back to back to catch up on the first 4. And it kind of works as an immersive experience. So it reminded me of the old days when we, first came upon the show. It was in Miami when we were down there together. And you just do those binge watches, which I think for a competition show, I hadn't done that in a while, but it really works. Within one afternoon, I went from not knowing anything to being up to date to being completely vested.
So what are some of the advantages of that? Is it that storylines kind of flow through from episode to episode, or is it just you kind of retain a lot of the character studies that they're doing, that you feel like you're not losing any sort of momentum going from episode to episode?
I mean, I think that is right. I mean, that's exactly what it is. It's just, it's getting into a good novel on a beach vacation where you can literally read 4, 5, 6 hours a day and you're just in it, as opposed to dropping in for 45 minutes to an hour every 7 days. It's just natural. It's why people binge. There's the compounding factor of concentration, right? So if you watch one and then you watch another, the second evokes the first, and then the third evokes the second. And I think it's just that. It's the great sort of human psychology of binge watching.
I've felt like this season of Top Chef has been a little bit secluded from Canada. I haven't gotten a lot of Canada this season. Don't know if you felt the same way. What are your first impressions of Destination Canada this year?
I mean, I think I'm getting enough Canada. And I say this as a huge fan of Toronto and food, and I think they've done a nice job of so kind of celebrating the tapestry that is kind of the Toronto food scene. We've had our poutine, we've had our maple syrup. I'm good. I think it was actually quite heavy early, and I like what they've done, which is they kind of they pack the dorky local culinary thing in the first few episodes, and then you just kind of get on with the business of Top Chef, the business of restaurant wars, these important, it becomes more about the chefs than the place. And I think you need the place to sort of usher you until you know enough about the chefs, until you have a sense of their tendencies and their profiles. And so I think they kind of did it very nicely that way, right? So hit place early, and then the actual characters take over.
Yeah. I felt like the poutine episode and the maple syrup, I felt like they were coming out with the heavy hitters in the beginning at first couple episodes. And I guess from a strategy standpoint, you want to lure and kind of hook the viewers in and establish a sense of identity and establish a sense of place. But I was also worried that, hey, did they bust it out a little too early? Like an NBA coach busting out all the plays in November and letting everybody see a little early in the season what you're trying to get. You're trying to build these habits, but you're also kind of giving away a lot of your trade secrets. But then again, This season, I think has been pretty strong. The chefs have been pretty strong. I drafted Katiana #1 overall in the draft this year. And then Tristan kind of fell in sort of the middle of the pack. He's on Eric's team, and Eric has been just gangbusters, just been crushing me this season. He's got Tristan, and Tristan is on this level. We'll get into more of it later, but Tristen Epps has established himself as in that top tier of Top Chef performances. Last 5 episodes, he's got 4 wins. And Kevin, what really strikes me about this guy, I don't know how you felt, he's got so many different cuisines that he's pulling from. He doesn't even like the food that he's cooking.
I know.
And he's producing dishes that Tom Colicchio is saying it's the best he's ever had, Kevin.
I think we're seeing greatness. You know, every couple of seasons, you get just an absolute legend. I mean, Buddha being the most recent example. Mm-hmm. But we are seeing, this is one of those, you know, when Kobe did his string of 40-point games, right? I mean, we are observing greatness. As you said, 4 out of 5 wins. And the non-winner, as you pointed out in your essay at the Substack, at the Packing Knife Substack the other day, is the non-winner was a cured mackerel dish with charred pickles and a vichyssoise that Tom Colicchio calls one of the best things he's ever eaten, and that's the dish that didn't win. You know, he does this figgy duff braised lamb, which, as you said, he doesn't have a damn bit of interest on Canadian dessert. So what the hell is a figgy duff? He crushes that. Gets assigned Greek food, which about in terms of, you know, kind of style and aesthetics is about as far away from Trinidad as you can get. He comes out with the charred octopus with that caramel olive glaze. They crush that. He does the Lamacan lamb pizza with the anchovy ranch. Doesn't even like that. Mm-hmm. Wins that. And then you get the grilled mushroom escabeche, which we'll talk about later. I mean, he is on a run that, again, it's not that he's just versatile. He's interpretive. He's an interpretive chef. Any pitch, any count. We've talked about that in the past, Tom, right? Like people and what I also love is he kind of knows the game too. This isn't one of those, hey, if I go down doing something, but then at least no, he doesn't do that. I mean, he is incredibly strategic. He understands the parameters. He knows intuitively what the judges are looking for. And you also saw the poise. And he is never at all. He's able to be authoritative. He's able to tell teammates, hey, look, this is how it's going to go. He's able to say, get Massimo in here now, but without any sort of hysteria, with the utmost professionalism. I mean, he's the full package. And I got to tell you, Tom, I think it's a superstar league. I think Top Chef is a superstar league. I want to watch. I think it's a dynasty league too. Like, I want to watch dominance. I don't want parody. I want to watch a chef I'm going to remember forever. I want to watch a chef who I'm going to start following on Instagram. And I don't follow many people on Instagram. I follow a lot of golden retrievers. I don't follow a lot of humans. And I follow like architecture and shit, you know, and like, hey, here's Greg Maddox talking about, you know, a change up he wants through. Yeah, Barry, exactly. But I want to watch dominance. And I don't need the suspense. I want to watch a chef that is going to go down in my canon as just a reference point for my viewing, for my cooking, for how I approach things. Like, I want to watch dominance. And with Tristan Epps, we get to watch dominance. You asked me to predict. I don't know. You're much better at the probabilities. Well, does he have an 80% chance of winning the season? 70? That's an interesting question. But I just know that we're watching greatness in terms of Top Chef competition. And that's what I want. And and now it's gotten to the point when I sit down and watch, I'm not thinking, who's going to win today? It's what is Tristan going to do? Yeah. That's what I'm watching.
Yeah, and that's a real testament to his talent, and I think he's extremely likable. I find that his personality, he's just a winner, and he's not someone who's like Vinny, where it comes off as a little pompous or coming off as kind of full of himself. No, he knows what he wants. He knows what he's going to do. He's authoritative. Kevin, you're in a locker room with Vinny and Massimo, and you've got to kind of rally them together and have them like in line. That takes a certain personality. I'll push back a little bit. Like, I think we got a little bit of that of Vinny early, but like, I think like Vinny, he got humbled a couple times, right? I think I don't find an unlikability there. He was very compliant.
when kind
in
of
this
Tristan took the
episode,
controls.
yeah.
I mean, but like also like I think the last couple of weeks that's been brought down. Like I'm
Yes, it
not
has.
finding Vinny to be the villain. Like and there's some self-deprecation there. Like I'm actually I like Vinny more now than I did 4 weeks ago, and actually starting to like him quite a lot. Like I like the food. He's deferential when he needs to be now. Like I think he's got some flaws as a competitor. Like I don't think he's a guy who reads the challenge necessarily at an elite level. Like for instance, even just we'll talk a little bit about like kind of the proportions, but I'm not anti Vinny, and massively I kind of just buy more as comic relief than I do villainous.
I love him. He's fun, man. He's great. He's a great character on this show. He's like a cartoon character of like, oh, we want this like loud Italian from Montreal, and just this the energy, and he knows it, and you said it about Vinny too. He's self-deprecating. He's self-aware about who he is.
Yeah. I think if you could combine all the cultural stereotypes of a loud Italian and a boorish Quebecois guy, like you've essentially created Massimo. And for all of that, I actually quite like it as a shtick. As a shtick, I like it as a supporting character.
Yeah, he's of course we'll talk about it, front of house for this episode. He was born to be front of house. I felt like that was from the very first episode of this season. I was like, oh, that's the front of house guy if he makes it to Restaurant Wars. But I want to back up here for a second, Kevin, as a LA based journalist and writer and someone who's very into the food scene in LA. Are you familiar with Katiana and Cat Turner's restaurants? And were you excited to kind of see their journey this season? Because I was pretty bummed to see both of them exit as soon as they did.
I'll tell you how bummed I am to see Katiana exit. In my kitchen, where I keep sort of old takeout containers, you will find not 3 or 4, but like 9 or 10 Yangban Tupperwares. Because during COVID, particularly late COVID, Yangban was such a fixture in our house. Like, and I'm going to go through some of her greatest hits. I mean, I don't even think Katiana, fans of her on the show understand that her baked sea bream with the chili daikon, toasted breadcrumb, she like clearly brined it. It was my entree. It was the entree of COVID for me. I ordered the baked sea bream, an avocado and pear salad with that good hot mustard vinaigrette. I ordered that literally twice a week to my house during COVID. Like Yangban, and then what was great about Yangban, and I don't think people realize the full extent of it, the genius that was Yangban in its first incarnation. It's had several incarnations. She has a bit of ADD as a chef, you can tell, because so the first incarnation was, hey, we have these composed plates, but then it's also Yangban Deli, where she did this Korean Jewish deli hybrid. And so what was great about Yangban was I would order the entree. So I ordered the baked sea bream, and I hope she's listening. Like the baked sea bream with that avocado pear salad was like the perfect meal. It was a perfect meal. And then what I also got delivered at the same time was, oh, by the way, so that I can munch on it for the rest of the week, throw in a half pound of the organic egg salad that she did with, and she did this like this smoked trout schmear with like horseradish and creme. It was unbelievable.
Divine.
And she also had this
divine.
like chicken kale salad. It was like, it sustained me through COVID. Yangban was there was a time where that was the most important restaurant for the better part of, she had these like garlic soy carrots that she did as sort of a deli side, like kind of like, like it was, Yangban was amazing. And then what she did is she turned it into more of a refined restaurant. And actually I did eaten there with friend of the show, Mina Kimes. We went kind of when she kind of opened it as more of a sit down evening restaurant there. It was delicious. And then she closed it again, and it was supposed to reopen. But then I saw a notice last week that I believe it might be, they're kind of looking around, for a new space or something. But Yangban it was called Yangban Society, actually. It was the most important culinary institution in during COVID for me. Like she's a genius. I was very, very disappointed to see her go. And actually, like you, I probably would have had her as a top 3 pick going in. And I was also quite surprised to see her go.
Yeah, she's in Last Chance Kitchen right now, and she's surviving there. Unfortunately, she had to go against Cat, which seems cruel considering they're neighbors in LA. And I guess Katiana, she goes by Cat too, which I've learned. Kat Turner was telling me that they're both Cat, but because on the show they can't have two cats, so they had to choose one with the full name. So they go Katiana. I really hope that she makes it back from Last Chance Kitchen, because I think if there's anyone who can make Tristan have a run for his money, I feel like Katiana is really good on this show. I felt like she made some mistakes with that porridge dish and adding the porridge, and as Danny Garcia mentioned, could have done without that, and it would have been a fine dish. I want to see her back in a way that like Kristen Kish or Joe Flam coming back from Last Chance Kitchen. That is the chef I think they do not want to see come back in the competition.
Yeah. Now I've not eaten. Kat Turner has a place people really like a lot called Highly Likely, and it's actually not far from us. It's up in Highland Park on a stretch of Figueroa.
Mina loves that place. Loves that place.
Yeah, it's a great. I'll tell you what it is. It reminds you of. It was one of those things where I went to for the first time. I got to visit Melbourne, Australia, right before COVID in 2019, and Melbourne is just sort of famous for these all day cafes. That hey, do your breakfast, lovely, breakfast brunchy items during the morning, and then it kind of evolves into a place where you can sit with your cup of coffee, and then it evolves into a place where you can get lunch, and then with salads, and then it becomes like a cocktail real place. Like it reminds me of something you see in Melbourne, Australia, and it was so needed in the neighborhood. I have not been up there, and I've been promising myself I'd go for the last year and a half or so, but I have not gotten to Highly Likely. But it is an institution on Figueroa in the wonderful neighborhood of Highland Park. And yeah.
Were there any other chefs that you were familiar with or interested to see in the competition this year, or were they all new to you, Kevin?
I mean, mostly new to me. I wasn't completely familiar, with anyone, including even in Schwein. I just came from Charleston, South Carolina, where I used to go a lot and don't go very much anymore. But no, these were all relatively new. It was a really interesting field. It's a really interesting field of contestants this year.
Also, we had some interesting guest judges. Of course, Danny Garcia was for the pickle episode a couple weeks ago. Sarah Bradley was there, and she came onto the show and talked about her appearance in Top Chef Destination Canada. We also had Michael Cera and Amy Schneider for the trivia episode a few weeks back. So I feel like I don't know, are there any Canadians that you're like, you have a list here that you'd love to see on Top Chef or have an appearance as we wind down the Destination Canada portion? I
mean, I don't think so.
I'm trying to think if there was like a draft in my head of power rankings of
like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, maybe.
Yeah. He might have been, you know what? I don't know if you caught this, but a few episodes ago, they were talking about like Tristan for the trivia episode, that how brilliant he was and how like he's just an encyclopedia of random knowledge. And he dropped that there was 60 starters in the NBA starters in the Summer Olympics. And I was like, oh, Tristan knows ball. And I'd imagine that it was being taped around the time that Paris was happening. So I don't think do you think Shea would have flown across the country, skipped maybe a medal game just to be on Top Chef? Or do you think Shea would prefer to be in a Paris Olympics for the first time in his career? I don't know.
Yeah.
Different milestones in your career, maybe.
Yeah, but he is a Toronto guy, and he is Caribbean Canadian. So you never know.
Maybe Steve Nash, another one that it would have been. I'm sure of all the travels that he's done. Nash
is vegan, isn't he? I want to say he is. I don't know why I want to say he is. I think.
See, this is why we can't do family style.
I don't want to get the show sued, but he might be vegan.
Well, you know what? This is a perfect way to get into Restaurant Wars, because one of the teams decides to go veggie forward, and Massimo decides, hey, does that mean we're going just veggies, or can we do proteins? This is Restaurant Wars, Kevin. This is the main event. This is, I would say, All-Star Game for the NBA, mid-season tentpole, but All-Star Game's kind of lost its luster. Kevin, you're excited for Restaurant Wars. I feel like they got back to its roots. There weren't any sort of curveballs. Last year they had one extra, I think, what was it? Michelle Wallace, she was like, had to pick which team she was on. It was really weird.
It was a Shonda. I mean, giving extra labor and extra set of hands to one team is just not even a fair fight.
there was a couple years back in COVID, they had to kind of do some weird, adaptations to the times that we were living in, but we're back. It's Restaurant Wars. They do drawing knives. There's no draft here. They have to draw knives, and so it's a completely random thing, but Tristan has immunity, and I love that Vinny called it out. He's like, strategically, I don't want to be on on Tristan's team, because that means math-wise probability 33%. If you're on the losing team, you're going home. I don't want to be with Tristan, but it turns out he's with Tristan along with Massimo, Lana, and on the other team, team 1 is Bailey, Paola, Schwei, and Cesar. So, Kevin, right off the bat, what are your thoughts on these two teams? I'll just give you the numbers here in terms of the fantasy points. Team 2, Massimo, Tristan, Lana, and Vinny have by far more power in the they have 101 points going into this competition. This episode, and team 1 had 67. So almost twice as many wins and points that they've accumulated throughout the season. So on strength alone, it seems like team 2 was better off, but I do think there were some bigger personalities there than in team 1.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's our old friend Brian Windhorst, right? Like, give me the team with LeBron James in any series, and I think I'm at the point where give me the team with Tristan Epps, right? Like that team's going to win. That team's going to win. I'm sorry, especially if you install him as executive chef. I agree with you. It was very refreshing to see Vinny recognize that you have a 1 in 3 chance of going home. I also don't think it's a coincidence that Vinny, who might be the most strategic competitor and thinking about things like that, chose the very, hey, I'm going to be a line cook. I'm going to execute one dish, and it's not going to be the worst plate on the thing. And you can poo-poo it as, it's not, you want to see someone say, go big, go home. No, it's Restaurant Wars. You park yourself on the line, you execute your dish, you play team ball, and you are guaranteed safety to next. It is basically as close to immunity as you can get in a competition without having immunity. Is I'm going to be the line chef to the best, to the competitor who's to the best person in the best chef on the show, who's going to be my executive chef, and I'm going to execute. Like, that's what I'm going to do. Tom, what are the probabilities? Once knives were picked and everybody was declared what position they were playing, that Vinny was going home. What, 1%?
Yeah.
0.8%?
Minimal.
Right.
Minimal.
Like a competent chef, like Vinny has asserted
it's
himself.
It's a non-zero chance, but it's very close to zero.
Yeah. Like he literally would have had to sneeze onto the plates. To go home. And, but I think I'm sort of a Windhorstian kind of view of give me the team with Tristan Epps. That's number 1. And number 2 is, I think this was one of those cases where, there's some strong personalities, but there was also a better concentration of cooking talent. And especially in a restaurant situation where I think the judges care about refinement when they go to the restaurant thing. And one of the problems that Nana Pipon had is, you can call it family style and grandma chic and everything else. But at the end of the day is let's do really unadventurous dishes that you can do in a large format. Like, a big thing of, cantaloupe. Give me a big, massive platter of braised short ribs. Give me, the arancini showed some technique.
That was the only good dish. That was the only good dish.
Yeah.
Everything else.
Sort of, But it wasn't, even if they executed the dishes themselves, like even if all 6 were done the way they were supposed to be done, God, I mean, that they should have just called the restaurant Ceiling. They should just call it Ceiling, because there was a ceiling and it was very low. Like how, you know what I'm saying? Like the dishes that someone's doing.
High floor, low ceiling would have been a great name for the restaurant.
High floor, low ceiling. That's what they should have called Nona Pipon. What is that? Oh, what does that mean? Oh, it means high floor, low ceiling. That's what the restaurant was. High floor, low ceiling. I'm sorry. Yeah, high floor, low ceiling.
Yeah. It was safe. Nothing seemed super inventive. They did do a hybrid, kind of like a fusion between Italian and Latin food, where it felt like, okay, this makes sense from a cohesive vision. But then the grandma chic, while I loved it, and they had that cute counter, which was adorable. I liked that. I just felt like the quality of the dishes weren't nearly in the same stratosphere as the other. Flora and fauna, which was, they were garden forward, veggie forward. There was a little bit of disagreement in the beginning. Shout out to Magical Elves. They got some drama there about the disagreements where Massimo was like, hey, I got this idea. How about this? We do six dishes, 3 courses celebrating the stages of Canadian history, French and English. And I'm proud of Vinny and Lana for being and Tristan for stepping up and saying, you know what? Let's do a vision that we can all bring something to the table. And I thought that was great. Lana has been dealing with Vinny, I think, this is the 3rd time she's been paired with Vinny, and I think they have a good rapport. They have a good chemistry together. They know kind of this working relationship where it's kind of yin and yang. Whereas, Massimo comes in with an idea that they don't really love, and they told him about it, and that's the sign of a good team.
I think so. And even Massimo, he backed off. I think Massimo's very aware of his absurdity. And, I think once it came out of his mouth that, you're probably the only person here who has an intimate interest in Canadian history. No disrespect to the fine neighbors to the north.
Yeah.
But I think there was probably a little bit of that, and everyone quickly rallied around the much better idea, which is, hey, let's do something that is you can recognize thematically, hey, but it provides a whole lot of flexibility, right? You can still get proteins in, but let's just, let's just flip it and just let the protein sort of defer to the garden element. And it kind of was, in some ways you could argue there wasn't enough tension. From a strictly television dramatic narrative standpoint, if there's one critique of this episode, it's nothing that anybody could have done anything about, is that it was basically devoid of tension. It was, hey, the tickets aren't being done exactly correct. Go find Massimo. Massimo fixes it very promptly because he's a very good front of the house guy. Although we'll talk a little bit about his sort of more gregarious side and how much of that you want in a restaurant. But there was actually this was a little bit of top friends, which I think speaks to kind of just the general quality of the sort of the comportments of each contestant than anything else. But it was, if anything, it was a little drama free, just because both teams sort of, just handled themselves well.
Yeah. Well, I think a couple things here. One, this wasn't a source of tension, but it was certainly a really devastating news that Tristan's father passed away, his stepfather, who he identified and said, that's my father. He was extremely important in my life. They I don't know if you caught this, but in the season recap, they show this FaceTime with his mother, and his stepfather was right up behind her shoulder, so excited to see Tristan in the FaceTime. And that kind of led and introduced this episode. And so it kind of it hit you right in the gut, just seeing how important he was to Tristan. And then finding the news, I don't know how many times we've had this on Top Chef, Kevin, where there's kind of an emergency back home, and a producer, they kind of broke down the fourth wall here, and they had this producer come out and pull him aside and say, your mother's on the phone. There's been an emergency. I don't know exactly what's going on. And Tristan goes off and finds the news that his stepfather had a stroke and has been moved into an induced coma. Kevin, I can't recall another. I feel like there have been emergencies, maybe, but not during Restaurant Wars, and not for a guy who I think is regarded as a Melissa King, Buddha Lowe, Kristen Kish level competitor. And so this was big, and we learned that his father passed away right before the cook. Just horrible news, devastating, and I really feel for Tristan. And we kind of had this moment of oh no, these are real people, real lives. And I don't know how I would react in that situation, but for Tristan, you kind of learn what he's all about. And in these lowest moments, you kind of have this insight into a person and who they are at their core. Not to say that if he reacted any different, that we'd think anything critical about him. But what Tristan did in this episode, and what the team did to rally, I did think kind of, I don't know what the right way to put this is, but I think they kept the main thing, and they rallied around Tristan, and they just focused on a level that we haven't quite seen on Top Chef Restaurant Wars.
It's as emotional as I've gotten watching a moment on Top Chef. It was really beautifully done. I think largely because we've come to be so drawn to this to this chef. I mean, he's just one of the great characters of the show. I mean, Tristan is, for all the reasons we set up top, but also, I mean, I think there's certain people in one's life, and we'll call them like your fans. And I think we all have them, right? These are the people who are defined not necessarily by the shared experiences or the time you spent together or this one time or that one time we did X, Y, or Z, but it's their belief in you and maybe your mutual belief in each other. That's meaningful. And I think that's particularly true if you're in kind of a field or a profession, or you've chosen a route in life that is improbable, that's aspirational, right? I mean, Tristan wants to be a world-class chef, right? I imagine if you're a kid, and this person comes into your life and hey, what do you want to do with your life? Oh, I want to go be a world-class chef. Well, there are only a few of those I don't care. And then there's a person who's like in your life who just pledges their utmost faith that you can do it. And one thing that when he talked about Russell, his stepfather, in I think a previous episode, as a sidebar, he mentioned that belief. Right. Like, I think, yeah, if you're trying to be a chef, if you're trying to be an athlete, if you're trying to be an actor, you're trying to be a writer. I mean, yeah, by the way, if you're trying to be an architect, you're trying to be a kid who gets out of a tough neighborhood, you're trying to be whatever it is. Like, it's the people whose belief that you can do it really nourishes you and sustains you. It's an incredibly powerful thing is your fans, the people who always believed in you. And what Tristan made very clear, both in previous episodes and is that was sort of, that defined Russell's relationship to him. It wasn't just that Russell was a good stepfather or good to his mom or whatever else. It was that Russell believed in Tristan's belief in himself, and it nourished and sustained him. And you really felt that. And it was such a beautiful moment. Again, I don't frequently get emotional, even when Tristan loses it or others. It's not why I come to the show. I make no bones about it. Like I appreciate the human parts of the story, but I'm here to watch a cooking competition show most nights. Not last night. Like I think that it was so beautifully rendered, and it was that belief, right? Like they really captured the nature. What made Russell so important to Tristan was the belief that Tristan could aspire and achieve what he wanted to aspire, and that was really cool.
And I know that there's probably a lot of decisions behind the scenes about how to handle this situation. You're in the middle of Restaurant Wars. This is the apex of the regular season, so to speak. What do we do? If he needs to leave the show, he's free to do that. Or do we tell the judges? Who do we tell about the news? Do we tell the contestants? All these things that seem trivial because of how earth-shattering that news might be. But I really think that the Top Chef Magical Elves team, they handled this beautifully in a way that I think paid tribute to Russell and Tristan's family, but also I felt like the judges table moment when he broke the news to the judges and then they found out afterwards. I just thought that was, you said it, a hugely emotional moment. Seeing Tom, Gail, Kristen, all these people that have meant so much to us over the years and watching this show, and seeing them pour their hearts out for Tristan, who they've only known for a couple weeks on this show, I think really speaks to just meeting the moment. And I really felt like the production team and everyone, the support team, the support staff around Tristan and the show, they answered the call here, and it was a really huge moment for the show and huge moment for Restaurant Wars, and the just the confluence of events here was something I can't remember, Kevin, on the show. But like, I do think that Vinny, he got teary-eyed talking about Tristan and the loss of Tristan's father. And I do think that, to what you're talking about earlier, Vinny has really had this nice redemption arc of this season as I think Tristan told him, sat him down, and said, "Hey, Vinny, enough about talking about your mentors and the dishes you used to make at restaurants. I want to see you cook your dishes, your story." And he comes out last week with that Reuben pizza. And then I think he starts to really kind of the insecurities that he might have been having, or the sort of the sheen, or this sort of attitude that he had earlier in the season, which we've seen worse attitudes over the years of Top Chef. But like, I think Vinny, I think Vinny has had a really great rebound on this show to what you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, I find him. I have found him not off-putting at all. And even probably early on, I didn't find it as off-putting, and maybe some did. But yeah, I thought that was a really interesting pivotal moment. Was Tristan, and they captured it in that sort of in the chambers, sort of saying, "Hey, look, dude, like
Nomad's great, but
yeah,
Vinny's even better. Let's see Vinny.
Yeah,
I want Vinny.
You're right, because it was one of those. I think the moments when you've received the best kind of constructive criticism in your life, it's not somebody yelling insults at you. It's somebody basically who's able to sort of not so much mask, but couch the critique in a kind of in a call to arms, basically, and an appeal for you to kind of achieve your potential, right? Like it wasn't that, hey, you're a pretentious asshole. It's hey, we've noticed that you spend a lot of time, and rightly so, sort of paying tribute to the masters that we all admire. However, that's not going to help you sculpt your own identity as a chef, right? And that was sort of yet another reason to like Tristan so much, right? Is that even when he's critiquing other chefs, he's doing it in a way that's empowering and not belittling. And I think that's something that's just so appealing about Tristan, who, again, I just want to iterate, is sort of emerging as one of my favorite chef testants of all time. I mean, it's why I love this season. I don't know that they're doing. I don't know that they're doing anything kind of completely novel this season. Structurally on the show, it is that they have found a compelling lead character.
So the lead character, Tristan, he's got the first course. It's a grilled mushroom escovitch with scallop, ajo blanco with a dawa dawa. Is that a sauce? I think it is. I want to say, or a flavor.
No. Dawa dawa is like African beans. It's like a
beans.
Like they call it a locust bean. And you find it so that is what dawa dawa is. And escovitch is wonderful. And what's interesting about this dish is it also, one of the things that Tristan's clearly really good at is adding that vinegar to his dishes. They mentioned it in the milk, and I don't want to get ahead of them, but the dessert also had this like spike of sherry. I think that's what it was, sherry vinegar. I think that Tristan said. And so escovitch is a very vinegary fish dish that's generally, I think, out of Jamaica.
Jamaica.
Right. So, but it's got that like that sort of hot, pickly kind of vinegar, and it's like Tristan. You're starting to see the subtle, like what makes a Tristan dish elevated, and I think you're realizing it's like vinegar can be a wonderful thing that just refines, elevates, provides the right hit of acid to a dish, and I just like grilled mushroom escovitch is such a freaking brilliant way to do the flora fauna thing, and still, oh, by the way, I still want to pay tribute to my sort of my home cuisine. It's such a smart dish.
That was like the first dish that they tried, and I was like, that's the winning dish. I was like, that's it. I don't even need to see the rest.
Yeah, you and I both worship at the altar of fungi. I mean, mushroom is just wonderful.
It's amazing. And Lana, she comes in with the pot liquor consomme, the trout with pot liquor consomme. Yeah. Pot liquor is kind of like the braised collard greens and the broth from the runoff from that, which amazing, right?
Yeah. So smart, because probably earthy and like that's gonna be briny and earthy, and it's a great dish. The chiffonade apparently wasn't a huge hit.
Yeah, I want to say that when you look at Nina's comments about the Lana's dish, at first she said she wasn't a huge fan of the pot liquor, she didn't like it.
The chiffonade got in the way,
yeah. But then at the end, she said that dish needs to be on your menu. Like she's like that was an awesome dish, and so a little bit of a blemish there, but mostly that was an awesome dish from Lana. So like Tristan and Lana right off the bat hit the first course. Second course, Vinny does the squash with pork tenderloin, which looked awesome. And I think if there wasn't that constraint of like, hey, veggie forward, this is the identity of the restaurant, that might have been, like a superb dish. And I think that the flavors were great. Presentation was great. And the only knock on it was just like, hey, if it's a veggie forward, maybe not have 50-50 veg squash and pork. But the guest judge, Janet, she said it was like the best squash she's ever had in her life. And for Vinny, man, he can cook, dude. He can cook.
So I it was one of those things like whenever I kind of, you look at the 12 dishes and they do the little picture in the thing. It's like the one thing from this episode that I want to learn is how he confit that squash. Because squash has just become a great, it's kind of one of our kind of it's not even a vegetable. I mean, it's basically a carb disguised as a vegetable because it grows, but it's a, it has high sugar content and it's not really green and, whatever. But I just cook so much of it now because it's such a great conduit for other stuff. And I do this mint pomegranate pesto that I put on grilled squash or roasted squash. And I am dying to know. So if Vinny is listening, I really want to know if is it like just straight up olive oil? is it a broth? I mean, like how did you, because it was so, you could almost see the sheen on it. It was just so gorgeous. And I have this, I'm going to push back on one of the judge criticism. I'm sorry. I am never going to complain when there's more protein than veg. Sorry, that's not a problem. I understand that the concept of the restaurant was veggie forward. Yes, give me less of the protein. No, nobody says that. No one ever looks at a plate and says, God, it's just, what I really wanted was more veg and less protein. And I don't even eat pork, but it's just I don't think that's a legit criticism. I'm sorry. I don't think that's a legit criticism.
They had to find something. They had to find something.
Come on. I mean, everybody wants more of that and less of that. It's like the Larry David, there aren't there are too many shrimps in this takeout Chinese dish. No, there's not. There's no one's ever going to complain about too much protein.
I'm with you, and it looked like a Frank Lloyd Wright presentation. It just looked awesome. It was really well done. The presentation was great. Lana comes in with the truffle, potato, celery root, pithivier, which was with lamb jus. It was another hit. Lana has been kind of Eric and I were talking about coasting isn't the right word. She's just kind of. She's under the radar. She's someone that's been in the middle for most of this season, not too high, not too low. And she might have this turn. Adrian had a similar arc in her Adrian Cheatham, where it was she's putting out good food. It's not hitting the highest of high notes, but I feel like she could come on strong and have a late surge and really get into the finale here. And this, I don't know the choice about truffle, but they didn't seem to mind it. That was one of the tanking ingredients from a few episodes back, and she nailed it. It was another good dish.
Yeah, she is. It is that arc that we've noticed in past competitors, right? Which is you pretty much play error-free ball. Aspirationally, I think your dishes are really high concept and smart and original and yell refinement. And you're consistently the third or fourth best chef of the day, right? Mm-hmm. Out of 9, out of 10, out of 12. And then what happens is you probably I think if she's in the finale, I don't think any of us are surprised. She's clearly got it together, and she will consistently, but she will finish just behind. It's that second tier, error-free ball, maybe, slightly underseasoned at times, or there's, the chiffonade, because raw greens are kind of, just aren't the most palatable, and that's clear what Nina kind of responded to negatively. So there's the smallest of small errors, which is the chiffonade is just not crazy about, right? Not, oh God, this was inedible, or it was porridge on the bottom, or I think it will not surprise me if in 4 weeks we're looking at her as in the final four, not at all. Just not going to finish on top a lot because it is very, very hard to beat the best of Tristan, the best of Vinny. She is the ultimate very high floor and not even low ceiling, but mid ceiling, right? That's
is she Steve Avery on the Maddox, Tom Glavine, where it's just you're going against two Hall of Famers in the rotation. Who would that be?
Yeah, maybe she's more Charlie Lee brand, but no. The Avery, only because Avery was so electric. Avery, I took a train to Pittsburgh in 1991 to watch him pitch a 4-hit shutout in Game 2 of the League Championship Series. And Avery at his best was frankly, as talented as either of those guys. He just had a bad shoulder and a bad arm. He couldn't sustain it. But
so you would say talent wise, he's up there with Glavine and
I
Maddox?
think Avery as a young ace. I mean, people forget, he was spoken of even more so than Smoltz. Avery, because he was a lefty, it was it was that snap lefty cut. Like he was insane. It just his body couldn't hold up. Right. It was just one of those guys that just didn't have that. But Avery at his best was just an absolute witch. Yeah.
Let's talk about the Maddox here, the all timer, the cerebral Tristan with the dirt, the milk chocolate custard, caramelized parsnip, rich, but like has this inventive. You know, we've all had the dirt dessert before. I think we've all had some version of that at a restaurant, and it didn't come off as tacky or cliche or anything like that. The judges ate it up, and he had 2 dishes that probably stood out as elite dishes on the team, and he's the winner here, despite the devastating news of his father passing. And I feel like Tristan, I don't know, there's not too many people who could have done what he did, leading a kitchen. I could see someone being like, look, guys, I can't cook the dishes today. I will run the kitchen, but like I don't have the capacity, the energy right now to just do what I need to do to put out those dishes. No, he was the executive chef, and he was the winner on this episode. And just kudos, hats off to Tristan, man. What a performance in this episode. Any thoughts on the dessert here from Tristan?
It was, he's very good at finding, and I mentioned it earlier, that sherry, right? He's very good at finding the one little detail that is going to make the Kish Colicchio coalition smile. Like, it's very clear that like sort of the Easter egg, the really literary screenwriter or novel, sort of TV writer drops for the 2% of the audience who will understand it, and it won't be obtrusive to anybody else, right? Like, he's very good at finding the subtle little thread to add to a dish that yells to those chef judges like, yes, I am at that level. And yet no one else is going to find it offensive. No one else might even notice it.
It's like a little Easter egg, right? Like they're eating and they're like, ooh, like your decision to do that. Wow.
Exactly. I know what you did here, and I really admire it. Like, that's every time comes to the judges table, you see Kish just sort of say, oh, I saw something you did. Don't think I didn't notice that you did that really brilliant sleight of hand. And I think Buddha was obviously really good at it, right? And I think it's clear. Like, nowhere in the preparation of the dish did we see that little ad, but it is the one, those little details that like what's the difference between the absolute world-class Michelin-y, if you care about that, the James Beard chefs, and the merely very good chefs, and even the excellent chef? It is those little small things, and I think he clearly has them. And in the sherry and this dessert, again, this is one of those moments where the only bad thing about Top Chef as a concept is you and I can't taste the food. We can sit here and talk and speculate, but we're not there. But yeah, that's what, again, just another area where he's just clearly heads and shoulders above the rest of the competition.
Okay, so we went to Restaurant Wars. Longtime listeners know we probably talk about it way too much, but we went to Restaurant Wars in Top Chef Kentucky, and we got to see Nina Compton at Restaurant Wars that year when she was, I think, Karen Akunowitz was also there, I want to say, as one of the guest judges for that year. Yeah. And there were 3 restaurants. We actually got to eat Eric Adjepong's meal, his dishes, which was such an amazing coincidence that we were able to do that. And then Janet here and Nina, they were great judges. They were strong with their opinions. They were critical, but like constructive. They had some I feel like they weren't light on the judges. And Janet in particular, what I saw from Massimo, and I saved him for the end on this team because I thought he was such a smart and diligent and attentive energy, great front of house. What Janet didn't like was this move that he did that I always enjoy. I know it felt like beneath, not literally, but like, no pun intended. Janet did not appreciate that Massimo kind of crouched down at the table and got their orders and talked to them at their level. I kind of love that. I didn't realize how much I loved it until he did it there, and then she pointed it out. But Kevin, I'm a big fan of the server that does the crouch. What are your thoughts on the crouch server move?
I mean, in general, it reminds me of like one of the things that you're told if you want to engender just the love and adoration of a dog is to get down at their level, right? It's like to kneel and like sort of, you don't want to pet them from above standing up because you're much taller than them. And it sort of reminds me of that, which is that if you want to create an intimate relationship with your diners, like kind of, we're sitting, you're standing. So you essentially approximate sitting as best you can, which means kneeling down and becoming the fifth person at the table for.
Have you ever had someone pull up a chair, just kind of like sit down in front of you? I've had that before where it's like, hey, I just want to hang out with you guys for a second and get to know you a little bit. Like I've had that before and it's endearing. I feel like you're bonding on a level that for whatever reason, just as human beings, like if you're up there and I'm down here, I'm just not connecting and vibing on the same level. But you're right. It's kind of like a dog. You get on the same level. I loved it, but you know what? I can understand Janet being like, this is fine dining. This is elevated cuisine, and wasn't in love with that move. But Massimo, I thought was, they did that rock, paper, scissors shoot with Lana about who would be front of house. I feel like they had a winning combination here with him at front of house here.
Well, also, it helped because to the extent that anyone's irritated by him back in the kitchen, he's not there. One thing about the nice thing about the front of the house is, and I don't say this snidely, like, is if there's somebody who's dynamic or whose nervous energy you don't appreciate in the kitchen for whatever reason, or Massimo, we also know, is very messy in his station, right? Like, you just get them out of there. You just say, like,
start a 5-alarm fire in the kitchen. Yep.
Right. Yep. It's a wonderful way to sort of exile a personality who might be suspect to certain members of the team and get them out of the kitchen. And it turns out that he's actually quite good at this. I think, how familiar you want your server, your restaurateur to be is one of those. I think it is one of those Potter Stewart, it when you see it, but you don't know. Like, there are nights where I love that. I'm in from out of town. It's very clear I came to this restaurant as a destination. Like, I love that kind of attention. I want to hear more stories about how the restaurant's doing and what the mission and the purpose of the restaurant is. Like, I love that. And there are times where I'm at a restaurant to have a serious conversation with a person or a very quiet, intimate dinner where I just get the hell out of here. Like, just do the minimum required. Like, be present. If I need you, I'll let you know, but
if I could order on an iPad, I would.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it's just like, how do you discern that from a table? I don't know. I mean, I guess that's what makes a really good server. A server is knowing, hey, table 12 wants the dog and pony show, and table 14 wants to be left the hell alone. And I think that is, again, it's just a sixth sense. I mean, it's sort of like when you go to a party and you socialize, like who's interested in having sort of the deep conversation, who's just interested in niceties, and you just have to kind of glean from the person's comportment what they're about. Yeah. And Massimo clearly assumes that everyone wants that. But I think I'd rather have that than what Schwei did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Schwei just was inside his own head, I feel like, about too much attention, not enough attention. I think he came from the right place, is like he doesn't want to be hounding in the way that Massimo probably was hounding a little bit, or just kind of lingering and loitering by the table. And I thought that was a really cool moment where Gail and Tom were like, hey, wait a minute. Hey, scram. Like, we got to talk. Yeah. We got to critique and judge and discuss about your dishes. You can't be within earshot of this. Scram. Whereas Schwei was completely abandoning them, and that was not a smart strategy.
Yeah, I mean, my question to Schwei, who's just so incredibly likable, is, I mean, if you're someone who worries that you're, too invasive or too present, you're probably not the right person for front of the house. Like, it has to be the kind of person who is shameless and there. I mean, you want that discernment I talked about, like knowing when to shut up or leave, but like your default mode as the front of the house person should be extrovert. And he's clearly not an extrovert. And so I have this dynamic in my relationship, right? Like, we throw a birthday party for our golden retriever, like the last weekend in September, because it's his birthday. Right. And like, it's this goofy thing we do because we're obsessed with our dog, and we're like a gay childless couple, and our golden retriever's our son. And like, we're absurd. We're absolutely, we're those people. It's ridiculous. But like, we go up and draw up the list for the party, and every year we argue because like, my feeling is like, it's for people who either also have a real attachment to our dog or find birthday parties for dogs in a city like Los Angeles, where it might take a 35-minute drive to get there, to not be an imposition. But I also assume that for a lot of people, social invitations are impositions. So like, we'll say, well, Eric, my partner will say, hey, let's invite that couple. And And I'm like, no, they have a kid. Like, they're not going to want to. The last thing they want to do on a Saturday in September is drive across town to come to our dog's birthday party. Like, let's spare them the indignity of having to say no or come up with a dumb excuse not to come, and just let's spare them the invitation. And my partner's like, no, they like us. They like our dog. They like hanging out. They like socializing. Like, the fact that you would not want to invite somebody who likes you to a party because you think it's an imposition is this the dumbest thing my partner's ever heard. And I think he's probably right about this. But Shui basically exists in my world where it's an imposition to show up at a diner's table and start talking to them, right? Like, and it's just not a good place to be. Like, I would be not good at front of the house. And Shuai's instinct that, it's an imposition, that I'm actually being invasive, that if I actually come up to the table and tell them things that they might, like, it's just a really bad instinct. Like, he's lucky he didn't go. Right. He's lucky that their entire day was a disaster. Not a disaster. It wasn't a disaster, but like, he's lucky because he kind of was would you agree, Tom, that what Shui did was classic go home as front of the house behavior?
Yes. And it was in direct contrast to Massimo, who, as soon as they walked into the door, made sure they had a glass of champagne, right? Walked them to their seat. Like, had some nice little small talk, jokey stuff to just schmooze with the judges and get a good chuckle out of them. Kristen Kish clearly loves Massimo in a just like he's like a puppy to her. Like, she just can't stop chuckling at whatever Massimo is saying in the way that like is a direct contrast to what Shui was, which was just like abandoning and absent. And I think when you look at Shui, I wonder if part of him was looking at the competitive advantages of his team and saying, like, who is the most likely to be front of house or succeed in front of house on my team? Bailey, Paola, Cesar? Maybe I'm the most likely to succeed in front of house. And even though he has a great story about why growing up in a communist country, like why he's predisposed to having this bubbly personality or making the best of a situation. I didn't feel like he would be top 3 on my list of the larger competition to be front of house. But then again, I'm trying to think, like, do I want maybe Bailey would be great in that role. Maybe Paola, she's opened up a bunch of restaurants. She seemed like a natural fit to be the executive chef. So she's the executive chef. Shui takes front of house. And I got to tell you, Kevin, like, I graded all these dishes, and the only one I think the judges liked was that Chipotle chorizo arancini that Bailey made. Yeah. Otherwise, I just don't think the other dishes landed.
I think they lost the competition the day before. I think here's my theory of it. I mean, I agree that I think we both agree that the aspiration for each dish just wasn't high enough. Like, it's just, at the end of the day, it's just homey dishes that you can make in a big format, right? Like, they were not going to win with that menu against the Flora and Fauna menu anyway. But I think where they really lost the competition was the day before. And it was the moment they decided not to split up. Right. And Flora and Fauna did something very smart. Again, they sent Massimo off because Massimo can be irritating. And but you know what? He's hyper. And you know what hyper people are really good at? Running through a Whole Foods by themselves, talking to themselves. Yeah. Procuring all the produce you need at Whole Foods for your prep, while the other 3 people took care of the more specialty items. They went to kind of the lovely
St. Lawrence Market,
St. Lawrence Market, which is where I've been in Toronto. And what did the other team do? We're a team, so let's have 4 people do the work that can be done by 2 people redundantly. Go to multiple stops, not even realize till later, oh shit, we're running out of time. Oh, and by the way, even though we're sending 2 of you back to start prep, you're not going to have the essential element you need, which is cleaning and deveining God knows how many pounds of shrimp. So Shuai's sitting there with his thumb up his ass. Oh, you wonder why the agua chile was joyless and unseasoned? I don't know. Maybe because the poor guy who was charged with creating the dish and producing the dish, not at the end, ultimately he was going to be the front of the house. So, it's 55 minutes. They're coming in with groceries. Cooking is all about time management. Yes, it's about inspiration. It's about creativity. It's about execution, of course. Yes. But at the end of the day, it's why I was so exercised last year when they had a 5-on-4 competition. At the end of the day, it is about labor. It is that you have X number of, like, basically, I always say this, like cooking a big dinner party, whatever, it's a series of 12-minute tasks. Chopping the shallots, deveining the shrimp, whatever it is, right? Like, and you have, in a big party, you have literally, you can have 30 of those 12-minute tasks, right? Like literally it's 400 and, 360, it's 6 hours, right? Like it's 30 12-minute tasks. And every one of those you can knock out the day in advance, an hour in advance, the morning of, 2 hours before people come so that everything's done, clean, whatever. Like, is a moment you're closer to your goal of actually producing really good food for a lot of people. And they just failed at the fundamental task of time management. With this, we are family. Hey, we're all going to go together. No, don't go together. Split the hell up. Multitask. Get that done. Send someone off. How do you get back with the guy who's charged with the most labor-intensive task, does not have his protein 55 minutes before the thing? It is a travesty of bad organization. And look, I like every single person on the team. Part of me loves I like all of those people. But like, I'm sorry, the precious, Paola was so, no. Your job is to execute. You failed at the fundamental task of time management. Yeah. It drives me crazy, people who can't manage time. It just does. And that's where they lost the competition, to be honest. So one of the reasons your agua chili is joyless and underseasoned is the guy didn't even have a chance to really prep it. One of the reasons why, you ran out of time and you're serving whole almonds in a romesco is because you didn't have time to do it right. Why didn't you have time to do it right? Because you squandered the entire day playing frigging sightseeing the culinary markets of Toronto instead of doing the job at hand. And it's disgraceful. Sorry, but it's just absolute Top Chef 101, Restaurant Wars, own goal, Tom Haberstroh. I'm sorry, but it is.
That was an epic rant by Kevin. Glad to have you back for this Restaurant Wars. That was, I wasn't picking up on that as I watched, but as you're talking about it, you're absolutely right. And one of the reasons why Shawai admits that he's tired to the judges' table when he's serving them is because he's overly tired. And if he wasn't so fatigued because he was playing from, behind the 8 ball there, he probably would have the conscientiousness to just be like, wait, I gotta say not what I feel. I gotta say positivity and be positive and warming them up and buttering them up. And instead he says, I'm tired. And that's because he was so far behind with his teammates not being there with the shrimp. And he's the front of house. Make sure the front of house guy can do his stuff so he can go and tend to the front of house and basically run the restaurant and manage it from the ground up. And the fact that they didn't allow him that, I felt bad for him. And he's front of house. So a lot of times, hear no evil, see no evil. You're not able to understand what's going on in the kitchen. Shawai is going to get the brunt of the criticism because he is the one that they see. And so he's able to, kind of manage that situation, wasn't as attentive as he needed to be. I understand why he was struggling in this episode. The serving utensils, they didn't think that through. Janet, I'm with you, is that if you're going to have a family style, you got to think it through. It's not as easy as it sounds. You think you're taking a shortcut with the family style, but you got to really make sure that it's fully family style. And they just did not bring it.
Details. Yeah. And it sounded like they kind of recovered what could have been a really problematic situation, which was clearly the diners didn't understand the format. You need to choose one as a table or one for every 2 people at the table, right? And that I was expecting that actually to become sort of the fatal problem on the actual service. And it seemed like
they did get a nice they did get a nice thing there though, Kevin, where they got the judges first. And we know in Restaurant Wars, getting the judges first is a real benefit. And they got the judges first, but like you said, I did not see that happening where it would be tripped up on like, how do these people order? Like, how are they supposed to order? And they did calm it. They figured out how to weather that storm.
Yeah. Cesar, I mean, you want to get to the dishes? You want to walk us through the
let's
menu?
Do the dishes. Bailey, the arancini, she tries to do a risotto again, with the arancini, which is not the same. It's not a risotto on the plate, but similar idea. And I think they really like this one. It was, I think, the only winning dish or the only one that I had a check mark next to. This said, I think the judges really like this one.
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking about this counterfactual. If everybody who in Top Chef history who ever went out on risotto instead did an arancini of that risotto, like, would they have survived? It seems like arancini, which you started noticing, like arancini really kind of getting off of just sort of straight Italian menus and kind of popping up everywhere about, like, I feel like 6, 7, 8, 9 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's sort of late 2000 teens. You started seeing arancini everywhere. You started seeing it at wedding receptions, various on catering menus. And it is kind of a nice way to do risotto without having to expose yourself to the risk of risotto on the show. And it did look wonderful. I mean, it seems like, Bailey's cooking well, I think, by and large. I mean, her romesco not having almonds notwithstanding, it seems like she's been really, since she came back in the competition, been doing a really solid job just turning out, not terribly like, we're reinventing the wheel. This is not the most innovative dish in the world. We've seen arancini a million times, but executing tried and true stuff and giving it a slight creative turn, right? The chipotle chorizo combo sounds really just appealing, right? And she's cooking well.
The cannelloni, like you said, the almond, they did not enjoy the whole almond that she had. Yep. And there was a Kristen joke there about I like cold nuts, but balls. Not warm wet balls.
Yeah. Right? Wet nuts, wet balls.
Nuts. Wet whole nuts, not a fan of that. And I was picking up what she was putting down there. And I felt like it, she explained it at the judges' table why it was whole, and it was just kind of the blender. What was it? The blender didn't.
They had to end up using an emulsion blend at the end, which didn't do the job. I mean, I think the issue with romesco is, like, I'm actually pretty agnostic. Like, if you want to give me a chunky romesco, that's cool. You want to give me a non-chunky romesco, that's cool. But it has to be consistent. Right. I think that's the issue, right? Mm-hmm. Is that, go with whatever texture you want, but pick a texture. And if it is that texture, if it's going to be finely chopped, then fine. Then it's finely chopped. It's finely chopped throughout. If it's going to be bigger chunks, great. If it's almost indiscernible romesco, where it's almost the equivalent of creamy peanut butter, great. But if I'm having a creamy peanut butter, you can't give me a chunk of peanut or a whole peanut, no less. So I think that was sort of the issue, is not so much like that it's this. It was just that it was completely inconsistent.
Yeah, and Shawai, we already talked about the Fruity de Mar with the aguachile, and got into why that wasn't a hit. Cesar with the ancho braised short rib with polenta. I love that Nina got to critique the polenta, because one of my favorite dishes in Miami was the polenta board at Macchiolino by Mike Parolo, who's kind of Nina Compton's like protege over at Scarpetta in Miami. I love the polenta macchiolina. It is just rich. It is delicious. And they serve it in a bunch of different ways. And so here we have kind of the polenta queen having Cesar, the braised short rib, which on paper, I'm like all about that dish. But the polenta just it didn't land. It had good flavor, but it didn't come together.
How many Scarpettas are there now? I mean, there might be like 12. Where did I see one in the Middle East? I was like,
oh, really?
Like Dubai or Doha? Like that thing is everywhere. It is just everywhere. I was just thinking, I hadn't thought about it since you mentioned it, but it was like, God, like Scarpetta is just like one of those, like,
empires,
like 3-4 continents now. Anyway, just got me thinking. But yeah, Cesar's funny because, and we'll get to the churro texture was off, but they actually said it was quite tasty, irrespective of what it was. He didn't nail the churro-ness of it, but he's another one of those who's cooking, who has kind of, he has some real, he's not, I don't want to say, it's one of those, you don't want to say coasting, but he's pretty good at not being the worst chef of the day. And so we're now at the point on the other side of Restaurant Wars where I'm curious to see, I mean, if you had to do a kind of like, if Tom, if I were to ask you who's the next chef to go home, that's always an interesting question in this competition. And Cesar's
I love Cesar, man.
Yeah, he's been pretty good at not being that guy, right?
Yes. He's kind of the Kawhi, the temperament, disposition, maybe, but like the peaks of Kawhi is up there with Jordan, with KD, with LeBron. The peaks of Cesar, when he's doing that dill ice cream or the pickle ice cream that he did, where it just like blew everyone's minds. He's had some dishes where he goes for it. The salmon, I'm curious what you thought about the salmon cappuccino thing that he tried to do last, where it was like,
I love the sentiment. I love the aspiration. I think Cesar also might be one of these chefs I've noticed. And actually, when you look at his two errors, sort of the churros, he didn't nail the texture and the polenta wasn't great. Everything you just said about what you've loved from him happened on individual plates. He's one of these top chef competitors who's not great at cooking at scale. He had to do polenta for like 100. He had to do churros for 100, right? Like, or however many diners they had that night, right? At Restaurant Wars. But as the competition gets closer to the finale, typically you get out of a lot of these large format challenges, right? The food fairs, you're going to be doing canapes for 2,000 people, or I don't know, the entire population of Cape Town or whatever the hell it is, right? And he might just be one of these chefs where the minute it is, it's top caterer, he falters. But like, I have no doubt that if you ask Cesar to make polenta for the two of us tonight, it would be perfect.
Right. Like if he was on the finale, I feel like he could, if he was just say, hey, make the best 5-course menu of your life.
Exactly.
I'm putting Cesar on the top 3 in that big board. But like on this competition, on this challenge, you're right. He has an issue with doing scale.
Yeah, scale is an interesting. It's not something that a lot of chefs where it's like, and it's just because even when you have like we're having a dinner for 8 here on Saturday night. It's a totally different event than cooking just for one other person.
Ball game.
Right. Like, okay, so now am I firing 8 pieces of fish? Hell no. Like, I'm not doing that. I'm not running a restaurant here. Like, where's my one pot action? Like, give me my New York Times cooking app and, oh, good. I can make 4 pounds of chicken in one oven, right? Like it's a totally different skill. And I think Cesar struggles when it's top caterer, or for that matter, top restaurant. He's really good when it's top chef.
Yeah. He's safe, but Paola, with her dessert, because she's executive chef, she's running the restaurant. Shuai says that Paola was a part of the seasoning, or she was in charge of making sure that was well seasoned. She got knocked on that. The torta de noche tres leches was too dense, soggy, and there was when Tom was describing it as like, it kind of felt like the cereal that was soggy at the bottom of a milk bowl, like a bowl full of milk. I was like, ooh, I kind of like I don't mind that so much. Like when I get Cheerios in a bowl, do you let it soak for a bit, or like Life cereal? Do you let it soak for a bit in the bowl, or do you immediately, as soon as it hits the milk, you're drinking? And I know you're a half and half cereal guy.
You should always have cereal with half and half. But it's very funny. I was in a Sky Club yesterday, and at the Atlanta Sky Club in Terminal A, they have a Cinnamon Toast Crunch, which is just one of the greatest substances ever produced at scale. Yes. Talk about mass-produced processed foods. There's nothing better than a Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So it's a big dilemma. I think what you're mentioning is one of the great dilemmas, which is you want the crunch, which means you got to eat early, but you also want the milk to absorb that cinnamon sugar, which requires waiting. So what do you do? And I think the answer is, if you're in a Sky Club, is have one bowl of each, right?
Whoa.
So you got your little bowl where you go right away, and then you put the other one off to the side on your little table, and you come back to it until you go to the bathroom, you go back and get a drink, and then come back, and 10 minutes later you got.
What about the iceberg method though? Like you have a mountain and the top of it is dry, and so you're getting that crunch, but at the bottom it's soaking in the milk. I kind of feel like if you if you go heavy on the milk, you're losing that crunch. But if you go light on the milk and you have it half and half, not the cream half and half, but like half above and half below the liquid, I feel like you got the best of both worlds there, Kevin.
All right, so this is helpful because I've been trying to figure out how to. I went with the 2 bowls, but that's not always practical. I appreciate it. There's certain way. I found that the Kellogg's Applejack just does not do well soggy. Like that's one where you really want that milk because that Applejack milk is about as good as it gets. But I just find it very off-putting. A soggy Applejack is just not appealing.
No, you're right. Now that you mentioned it, or Kix, like a soggy Kix doesn't work.
Yeah.
I have a soft spot for Kix. Okay, it's not on my big board, and it's not top 10. But I
have a controversial statement. The General Mills cereals just aren't as good.
The whole line.
Yeah,
just
I mean, I no disrespect to General Mills. I'm sure that it's a fine company that's been a wonderful part of American processed cuisine, but I'm just never been. I always just find the General Mills version of whatever sugar cereal we're talking about is never as satisfying as the others.
Kevin, a lot of tears were shed on this episode. It was very emotional, Tristan, but I think also I think it maybe brought out a lot of just, it's exhausting, restaurant wars, and it's exhausting on a level that kind of just wears you down. And these chefs just emotional, not just for Tristan, but also just seeing each other go. We're in the thick of that competition where Paola, I don't think she was the strongest competitor in Top Chef history. I also think that I think she put herself in a solid position here by being executive chef. I don't think she was the worst executive chef we've ever seen, but you could tell that she really meant a lot to the other chefs in this competition. Bailey was straight up. Bailey was like, I want to say something here. Paola did a great job, and it did get accounted for in the discussion, the debate, but ultimately the time management that you said, the seasoning, and she was in charge and making sure when the dishes went out that they were tasting well, that the quality was up to a level. I felt like Paola, I would not have been surprised if Shuai went home, but Paola, at this point in the competition, she hasn't brought a fastball as fast and as high heat as a lot of these other chefs have done. So at this point in the competition, if the track record is ever brought into that conversation, and we saw Sarah Bradley on this episode, on this show, talk about she does think in her heart of hearts that the track record is kind of involved in the judges table, even though they won't admit it. Yeah. I feel like Paola going home felt, I don't know if justified is the right word, but I wasn't surprised to see her go home this week.
And at the risk of being uncharitable, Paola seems like just a delightful person and to be around and everything else. But the bottom line is she hasn't really made a memorable dish all season. The bottom line is typically just by virtue of math and everything else, when you get to 8 contestants left, there's always one who's truly been sort of outrunning the bear, as you like to say, or outrunning the person who the bear got, but not really distinguishing themselves. I can't think of one interesting dish that Paola's produced. Maybe interesting conceptually, but just not well executed. I disagree with Bailey in the sense that I have no doubt that she was a pleasure to work with and had a high EQ, and just clearly she meant a lot to those people, just as fellow chefs, and was one of the nice things about the show. But at the end of the day, no, she didn't do a good job. This is one of the least impressive restaurants we've seen in recent years, conceptually, culinarily, in terms of even managing the logistics and details of getting food out there. It suffered at the basic understanding of what service was, people coming back with individual orders when you basically were putting forward a family style restaurant that even diners didn't even grasp. There wasn't one notable dish other than the arancini. Just
the executive chef's going to go home for that. Yeah.
Again, if Tom, you kind of said 6 on 6, course one. I don't think they won one. Even the arancini probably doesn't beat. Does it beat either of the first dishes, the smoked trout with pot liquor consomme or the escabeche? No. Not conceptually, not in terms of execution, not anything. I mean, Paola, while being an incredibly nice person, presided over one of the biggest, just
duds. It was a dud.
Also, one of the biggest, lopsided losses in restaurant war history. Probably the only disclaimer that everybody got along well. There have been losses that were also a product of personality conflicts, and she clearly managed personalities exceptionally well. And so let's give her that. And that's probably clearly the root of Bailey's sadness. I mean, she's Paula's is a hell of a person, but I'm sorry. This is a cooking competition show, and Nana Pea Punch, low ceiling, low floor. Frankly, I mean, it just was it was nothing. It was. They didn't do a hell of a lot there.
Kevin, There's 7 chefs remaining. There's Last Chance Kitchen going on. Tristen or the field?
I'll say Tristen.
Yeah.
Although you're a field guy, right? I mean, it is true. Like even in you throw a 66 win team in it. So I mean, typically speaking, I mean, so tell me you're much better at this. Like you've looked at the history, you have a better grasp of probabilities. I mean, my instinct is Tristen, but like anything can go wrong in 7 weeks, right?
Yep. Gregory Gourdet and Katsuji Tanabe are the only 2 Top Chef competitors that before Restaurant Wars had won 3 out of 4 elimination challenge in a 4-episode stretch, like is on a heater on the level of Tristen coming into this episode. They didn't win Top Chef.
Right.
Neither of those guys. And it speaks to you have to be peaking at the right time. You know, you can win 20 out of 21 games at the end of the regular season, like the JJ Redick Philadelphia 76ers. And at the end of the day, all that matters is that you have your health and you're performing at when it matters most. And Tristen, as good as he is, I had to think about it. Tristen or the field. Normally you'd say a dude who has 4 elimination challenges and probably 5 in a row with a quickfire win on his belt as well over that stretch, that he is no doubt the odds-on favorite here to win it all. But Katiana's there lurking. Cesar has a really, really high peak when he's got it going. Vinny has shown on this series that he can hit those notes as well. I still go Tristen. I think I take Tristen over the field.
And one of the reasons that I would take Tristen over the field is, again, I don't see I like Cesar. I like Vinny's game a lot, and I think he's starting to really, come on. I don't know that there's anybody in the field who intimidates me if I'm Tristen. Like that's the problem, is I don't see a number 2 who's shown sustained dominance at any point in the competition. I mean, Katiana was quite good, but she makes a couple. I mean, she does fly a little too close to the sun. There are always a couple odd head scratching decisions, which is part of the whimsy of her food. I mean, it's one of the reasons she's such a great chef, and it's one of the hardest things in Top Chef is to sort of. She took
a licorice dish that won
exactly.
What?
Who does
How do you do
right?
that?
Exactly. But, taming that inspiration is the hardest thing in Top Chef. And it's one of the things that makes Tristen, who puts anchovy ranch, who does that? Well, he does that, and he does it without any controversy at the table.
Adjepong had this great line where he was like, if this is how he cooks with food he doesn't like, what's he got in his back pocket ready for when it matters most? Like, he hasn't even cooked the food that he loves yet, because he's been just on this run of like, hey, we're going to give you your least favorite ingredients and you're still going to win with that. So I kind of feel like Tristen has another level that he can get to in ways that separates the good ones from the great ones.
Look, and the bottom line is, you said it at the top of the show. We're now in a phase where the guy has cooked the best dish in a crowded competition that isn't even down to beyond 8, 5 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
All right, so he won out of 12 chefs, he had the best dish. Then out of 11 chefs, he had the best dish. Then out of 10 chefs, he had the best dish. Then out of 9 chefs, he had the best dish. Then out of 8 chefs, he had the best dish. The 2 weeks before that, he finished in the top 3 or 4. It is a level of dominance, and there is no. I mean, look, there are no disclaimers. I mean, it is a level of dominance we have never seen. I so appreciated that post of yours from the other day, and yeah, and again, as you say, he's doing it in all kinds of different contexts. So I'm having as much fun. It is a superstar league, Top Chef, and I am enjoying the exhibitions put on by this particular superstar.
Anything this season that you watch and you're like, I can't wait to bring this up with Tom on the show? Anything this season that you were like, ooh, is there an article or research or any sort of curveballs thrown in that you were like, ooh, that's really interesting? I this episode, I wrote it down. The budget that they had, I think it was at the St. Lawrence market, each team had $2,300 to spend. And I immediately thought of you, Kevin, because I was like, ooh, I would love to know that meeting of like, how do we set the budget? Because $2,300 seems very like particular. of having a budget at $2,300.
Maybe it's U.S. Canada dollar to Canadian dollar.
I was trying to figure that out. Like
the loonie to the U.S. greenback. I think it might. That would be my guess. Is 2,300 was okay. It's and I don't know what the exchange rate was that particular day, but it might have been that was my best guess. Is because I had the same exact reaction, which was, oh, they're doing dollars to dollars. It was like,
yeah, I was like, wow, I want to be a fly on the wall to discuss like how they figure out those budgets. Cause it's one of those things that Adjepong always talks about is like, you don't realize because it's not cooking, but like the whole foods and the budget and the shopping, all that is super stressful. It's maybe the hardest thing on the show that you just
it's why like I go crazy on scallops right now. Like for whatever reason in Los Angeles, we're West Coast. There aren't a lot of scallops in this part of the world. And like, it is like it's gotten to the point where it's a dish I love doing, kind of a little appetizer. Everyone gets their little seared scallop with my little miso sake butter with a little dollop of yuzu koshu, and it's like, hell, am I spending like $70 on an appetizer for like 4 friends? Hell no. Like I'm doing something else now, right? Like it is. I mean, budget. It's a huge thing.
Yeah. So you're enjoying this season, Tristan, on a level that we've like. If you're not picking Tristan over the field, what do we need to see? Like, if it's not him, then who is it? Because this is as dominant as we've ever seen.
I thought Katiana was like the best one just because, again, high ceiling. But I think we found that her floor, and again, I don't say it as a criticism. She's a, I mean, look, I love her food was the most important thing in my food life for like a year. I mean, I can't tell. I was a Yangman Society maniac. But yeah, she every once in a while, hey, there's a the thread kind of gets away and it's then you end up with porridge or whatever the hell. But no, I mean, that Tristan to me is a story. It's a superstar league. Top Chef is best when there are dominant players and you just get wowed. Though I still want to get the confit squash because that fall will be coming before you know it, and I should be confiting squash, it seems, every week of various varieties.
Vinny, if you're listening, we want that Reuben pizza. We also want that that squash recipe. How you put that together? The confit. Anything else, Kevin? You're going to be back next week. You're pinch hitting. Eric is shooting Wildcard Kitchen season 3 out in LA, and he's wall to wall. He went to the Lakers game on Wednesday night, the finale of the Lakers season. So that was such a treat to see on his Instagram that he was able to go. And he's fantastic. He's taping. You're going to be back next week. You know what? I don't have any notes on the preview for next week's episode.
No, I have no notes either. I do want to say, Eric, I saw Eric a few weeks ago because I went to his event. Ghana to the World is his new cookbook. And as has been discussed here, and he had a wonderful event at Now Serving, which is a very small cookbook shop in Los Angeles' Chinatown. And it has just become one of those great civic institutions. I mean, they do events, even though they can't fit more than 15, 20 people in that space. It's become just such a hub of so much interesting conversation and cuisine. And I just had such a blast seeing Eric present the ideas behind Ghana to the World, which is now sitting on my shelf, and I'm about to do his duck and his yam dish. It is on the agenda. I'm going to start cooking out of this book. I had such a fun time eating in Ghana. I had such a fun time reading this book, and so it was also just a thrill to see Eric. And I'm glad. I'm honored to be sub-hosting for him.
Well, we can't wait to have you back again next week. Thanks for doing this. And Restaurant Wars, we did it. Yep. This was really fun. Kevin Arnovitz, I'm Tom Haverster, and this is Pack Your Knives.